I'm John Sicotte, executive editor of the Brewer Magazine. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics, and you can go to keglogistics.com/brewermag for more details. Of course, you can go to brewermag.com and ciderbusiness.com 24 hours a day and checking out those websites for your business resources in the industry. And of course, you can find the Brewer Magazine podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. Make sure you're liking and subscribing and catching up with us every single week. Well, what does the English football system have to do with branding and marketing in the United States? Well, we got into this discussion kind of just the way that Julian Wright brought it up, and we kind of dug into it a little bit about how the look and the brand and the feel can kind of translate over from those English Premier League teams into what a brewery is doing here in America. It was a really interesting conversation, and Julian, who is the founder of Haus Brewing in the Phoenix area, really got into that. We talk about brand marketing, what else do we strategies for marketing events, and of course, just making sure that you're connecting to your community. Lots of great insight, and we get into a pretty good discussion about Malort. Check it out. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. And we welcome in Julian Wright, the founder of Haus Brewing in Arizona. Julian, thanks for joining us here on the Brewer Magazine podcast.
Good morning, everybody.
Well, thanks for coming on. And we were kind of talking off camera. It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk. In fact, I was looking through the audio archives and actually lost an audio archive from us talking back in 2017. So I'm sure there's a lot that we can catch up with. But, you know, the one thing that we're talking about today really comes with like how marketing is playing a role in what you guys do. And we'll kind of get into some trends and tactics. But how about you just give everyone a kind of a snapshot of what House's journey is right now and how things have kind of gotten to this point, as you guys are coming up on 10 years now, right?
Yeah. We opened 2015, September 27th. So yeah, we're basically almost at the exact 10-year anniversary of House, which opened basically as a brew pub, meaning that we brewed on site, same place we served the beer and the food and everything else. And that was located in downtown Tempe, Arizona, near Arizona State University, and a bunch of other kind of tourist draws, but it has a really nice balance of local residents, tourism, plenty of companies in the area. So it's a pretty vibrant area. And we probably, because there's still reverberations of the housing issues back in the day. There was, 08 through 12 basically. So we started negotiating on this space in 2014. It was a former Islands grill. So I think the inside was about 6,000 square feet. And then we actually acquired the space next door to get 8,000 square feet. And then we were sort of in a courtyard, I guess you could say. And we went as big as we could with the patio. So the patio itself was 6,000 square feet.
Wow.
Which all seemed great at the time until we realized we had to fill all those seats with humans and proved to be a little more challenging than we expected. But it is a killer location. And once we kind of figured out the combination there, which included a massive remodel in, 9 months after we opened. So the summer of 2016, we shut down for 3 months. Completely started from scratch with sort of the vibe and the design and the layout. So it took a minute. There was some sleepless nights, especially because it was my first foray into the beer industry. And while I had one of the best partners for the brewing side of the operation, that being Doc Osborne, he worked for a company, BJ's Brew House, where he really just got to focus in his sort of silo of brewing beer. So didn't have much involvement in the other side of the operations. My background was in restaurants and bars, so I had a pretty good handle on basically everything but brewing. Mm-hmm. So together, we figured it out, but it didn't come easy, which sometimes is preferable, right? You tend to appreciate what you have when you had to fight for it. I would definitely say that was the case with Pedal Haus. But man, I would say in 2017, 18, probably 17, we just figured something out. We changed the menu 3 times. The beer was always good. That was like the one thing we had going for us. We were racking up medals. People were recognizing the quality, and that helped, but it's still not enough to fill 300 seats. I mean, if you got a 40-person tap room, you could probably rely on that, but we had to figure out the food, the service, everything else, but we did. And eventually that thing just started cranking. And now, when you got a brewery that's lasted 10 years, or maybe any sort of restaurant or bar, like, it becomes a staple of the community in a sense. And I think that's safe to say about Pedal Haus as well.
Awesome. So when you guys were first launching off, then, obviously like you said, the beer's good, figuring out the service was important, but getting your name out there, marketing yourselves, what were some of those challenges at that point in time? Maybe it's a snapshot of what beer was at that time, and how has that kind of changed for what you guys do with marketing, because maybe things have gotten tighter and things have gotten a little more difficult, and to get your voice out there, since there's probably more than there was 10 years ago.
Well, interesting you should ask, because I would say the craft beer industry, and really the beer industry as a whole, has probably changed more in the last decade since it first started to percolate 30, 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. For a number of different reasons, but largely due to the amount of competition and consumers changing tastes and what they're drinking, if they're drinking at all. So that's been interesting, challenging, and sort of to some degree leads the conversation about what is the messaging we're putting out there, and who are we targeting, and how much are we doing a sort of a blanket shotgun approach versus trying to really target. But I'd also say in 10 years, man, the marketing landscape's changed almost as much as the beer landscape has changed. Like, I don't remember back in 2015 relying so heavily on social media like we do today. So you asked, what do we do? We've tried almost everything under the sun, and we've adopted new things. We've gone back to old tried and true things over the decade. And our marketing strategy is just constantly evolving. It's a moving target. And I still feel like every year we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. And you have to keep in mind with Pedal Haus, like, there's so many different types of craft breweries. There's ones that have a very small tap room, perhaps even in their brewery, and they're mostly about off-premise distribution, so cans and bottles and kegs in restaurants. Then there's some that are real traditional brew pubs. They may not even sell outside their 4 walls. And then there's Pedal Haus, which is somewhere in between, because we do have a full bar. We do sell margaritas. We have 4 locations in 4 very different markets, which also lends to complicated marketing strategies, because what might work in Phoenix doesn't work in Chandler, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And it's also, you can think about it, like, all our restaurants have slightly different hours of operation, slightly different menus, and slightly different offerings, and slightly different clientele. So it's hard and challenging to do a one-size-fits-all marketing approach. So we have some things that we just use, some marketing strategies, you could say, that we apply to all 4. And then we also customize for each location based on what they're good at or where they're located. For instance, the Mesa location we just opened, it's the first one we've done that doesn't have a full brick and mortar kitchen. It just has a food truck, or food trailer technically. So it's a very limited menu. It's walk up. It's a completely different style of operation from the other one. So again, we're just trying to dial that thing. I always describe any bar or restaurant I open as a safe, and you're just trying all these different combos until hopefully one day the door opens and you get to start paying yourself back and putting some cash away or whatever. So, and then what we've seen with Tempe, and granted, there's all these things that change every year that are external factors, right? Like things out of your control. For instance, COVID 5 years ago, that actually didn't end up, oddly enough, being such a bad thing for us because government was just handing out the checks like crazy. So our balance sheet was strong. We took the time to take kind of a break. We would all get together at the one location we had at the time, or the main one, I guess, Tempe, the original one. And we'd have beers, we'd paint, we'd clean, we'd bond, we'd tell stories. And it was actually pretty fun. And then at least in Arizona, I think because the government laws and the way they handled COVID was a little softer than other states. So we rebounded really quick. But point being, there's some funky stuff going on now. Last, year? Well, probably starting back post-COVID inflation, we started seeing prices go crazy. Mm-hmm. And therefore menu prices went crazy. And people were kind of getting sick of paying $20 for a hamburger that was $12 2 years earlier. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, employee wages are always going up. So you can almost never rest. It's like as soon as you kind of cover some ground, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We're just dealing with a whole nother set of problems. So Tempe, the mothership, original location, we're seeing like lower tourism numbers, which kind of a nationwide thing. I think people are tightening their wallets a little bit. So I feel like we're at least in a soft recession. And then Tempe, the city itself where we're located, just decided to do a major downtown construction project. So access to our location was non-existent at some points. It certainly deterred people from going down there because, the entire 6-block downtown was under construction. Oh, wow. So we're dealing with that. Thankfully, that's going to be done by the end of the year. And then, the downtown will look nicer than it has in a long time. So I think we'll rebound. But as far as like marketing goes, at times we've had 2 people in the marketing department and before then and now currently we have 0. And part of it is if you build in 2 minutes, some people will argue, well, if you have corporate staff, if you want to call it that has a micro focus on one part of your business, in this case, marketing, and you delegate, you're going to have better results. But I could make the argument that in some cases, it can actually just add a layer of confusion and communication with balls getting dropped and signals getting mixed. And so we have decided, and we've done this with a lot of positions, just organically, not even as a reaction to the economy or anything else. But I sort of took back over real hands-on operational control about a little over a year ago. And I just saw the need to be more efficient because, the hours would be wrong on the website, or, we started rolling out beers every 2 weeks. And when you have 4 locations, that need the posters and the training and the beer. And we have these beer boards that have like the beer information on them, but you got to get that sticker made that goes on there. And so there's so many steps involved in rolling out a new beer. Forget the brewing and the naming and all that stuff. And
Right.
the ingredients and the strategy that goes into what beer we're brewing. When the beer comes out, there's like another 8 steps. Don't forget, you got to program the POS, and make sure it's on the menu and all the stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
And oftentimes, like, balls are just constantly getting dropped. And, we weren't really doing any earth-moving marketing strategies. So I was just like, well, we have some folks that are sort of doing these more detail-oriented rollouts things. Let's just fold it into their department. And me and our director of operations, this gal we hired who just moved here from Memphis, Tennessee, who's owned some restaurants and worked for some big restaurant companies, real good at the front of house stuff. Like, her and I just kind of took it back over, and it's just fewer throats to choke, as the saying goes. You know what I mean? And I've always really been involved in the marketing side anyway. And, whether it's trying to come up with names, which, man, I'm sure you talk to people that are just exhausted trying to come up with beer names, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And part of me is like, I don't like gimmicky names. Like, let's not name the beer for the sake of naming the beer. Like, our German style Pilsner is just called that. Pilsner.
Yep.
And yeah, there's some confusion because half of, if not 90% of American beer consumers have no idea what the difference between a lager is, an ale, a Pilsner. Like, they're kind of clueless. So people come in and order a lager. We're like, well, we have 3 or 4 lagers. And they're like, your dog looks at you when you say going outside or something. It throws them.
The word outside almost triggered something there, right?
Right. And it's like, it's no big deal. I mean, I like educating people, but point being, if you just name your beer Pilsner, there could be some disadvantages, but it's still, my MO is like not naming it unless it's a name we all like, kind of makes sense. It's not too gimmicky, but it's harder and harder. Like, we just, especially when you're rolling out these beers with specialty beers, obviously you can get a little bit more gimmicky. It's one and done in whatever 3 to 4 weeks. But that is helpful to have a name on that, because it is a one and done, gone, and you need to get sort of attention on that beer pretty quick. But man, we'll sit there in these meetings and be like, oh, we'll come up with a good one. It fits our brand, Pedal House. It fits the style of the beer, and sure as shit, some guy in Montana already has it. Or these massive breweries, like whatever, Stone or Sierra Nevada or someone,
Yeah.
New Belgium or someone, because they're churning out beer names like crazy. Anyway, so we've kind of brought the marketing, not that it was third party, but just we've tightened up the team a bit. So I don't know if I know you had some specific questions. I'm getting a little long-winded, so I'll pause and just see if there's something in particular you want to focus on.
Yeah, well, and where you're kind of just going with the beer name part, I was actually thinking of going down that hole as well, because when you did say it can cause consumer confusion. Is it your responsibility, meaning the beer industry in general, your staff, to be able to be more educative and be teaching people as they walk in? Or do you think it's just a overall beer I can't think of the word, beer illiteracy from general consumers? And is that the problem? I mean, where do we start with this?
It's both. I mean, the good news is, and I'm sure most micro or craft brewers would agree, more people that wouldn't drink craft beer in the past are drinking craft beer. Now, are they the most educated about beer in general? No. But neither is half my staff or more majority of my staff when they start working there. Now, getting back to my earlier point, the education of the consumer is much easier if you have a tiny tasting room and that's all you sell. And you have the luxury of having the time to communicate that. Imagine trying to communicate to our customers on an ASU home football game when we're 4 deep around the bar and people don't give a shit about the beer. Their only concern is how quickly can I get it in my mouth?
Yep.
So it's, unfortunately, there's no standard playbook for what we do because we're all of our locations are in downtowns. So people, more than if it was a destination, are just impulse consumers, meaning they walked by, oh, beer garden, that sounds fun. They come in, and we've moved our production brewery out of the Tempe location because we outgrew it. So there's no brewing taking place. But even when there was, and to get to the bathrooms, you walked past an entire brewery, people still didn't even know that we actually brewed the beer on site, right? So I guess point being, when you're serving margaritas and Tito sodas and burgers, even though we take our beer super seriously, you don't always have the luxury of the amount of time you'd like to educate someone, because they're there for many reasons. If you go into a tap room, you're there for one reason and you want the education. If you're coming to Pedal House, that's not always the case. So it's just, you have to recognize if they want that or they don't, and if they do, we're all about it, but we're definitely not going to force feed them, nor do we even have the time to half the time, depending on what's going on there. It's a high volume location. So, but getting back to naming, so I would say, gosh, I'd have to look at our list. Like, because we've been doing this a little while, we've got some names that we do really like our White Rabbit Hazy IPA. I do like that name. Happenstance, right outside the Tempe location, which is our original location. Some artist in the Tempe installed these bronze rabbits that are 7-8 feet tall. Like, they're huge. And there's like a little fountain. And so all these rabbits are around the fountain. So we sort of have just a little bit of a rabbit theme running through a lot of our beer names. So there's some cohesion there. And then obviously bicycle related things. So if we can find a name that hasn't been used and is either rabbit or bicycle related, those are kind of layups. But there's just not enough of those available. So like we just rolled out, we're about to roll out our German Dortmunder, which is literally probably my favorite beer that we make. But we're not trying to get all crazy with some German name. We're just calling it Dortmunder.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of Day Drinker Light Lager, that's kind of an obvious one that was available, believe it or not. Beer Blanche for our Belgian wit. So I guess the point is on the naming is like, it's challenging. We'll do it if it fits our brand. We just came out with a black IPA. It's called Voltage. And it's not that Voltage in itself really fits our 2 buckets of bicycles or bunnies. But man, the branding is so dope that we just rolled it out. I think I saw a lightning icon somewhere and it just like struck me as just being cool. And the can is black, the t-shirts are black, and then it's got some lightning bolts and some other cool visuals. And it just kind of seemed like a layup for the black IPA. And then we named it Voltage, so that all kind of ties in. And that's actually a name I'm pretty stoked about. So, you've seen it, you've been around. Some breweries are horrible at naming beers. Some breweries just go for the most low-hanging, obvious fruit when it comes to naming beers. I don't know. I get it. It probably resonates with the consumer more than names that are have a little more thought put into them. But man, it just seems so lazy to me.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the times now, the consumer has grown up a bit. So that some of those naming conventions that we all have seen, everyone's had a blue-eyed blonde, and you know exactly what it is, or something with a redhead theme with a red. I think those things have gone away quite a bit in the maturing of the industry. A lot of those homebrew names, I would call them, like that's how they started probably. It kind of, and again, I think because of the industry's evolving, the consumers for the most part are aging that maybe have started 10, 15 years ago. That it has kind of built that identity differently to make people realize. I think after like you kind of said, like sometimes it's just easier to say, let's just name it what it actually is, instead of let's try to be creative about it and dig ourselves into a hole where we're maybe giving ourselves a brand identity that we didn't even really end up with.
Well, it's exhausting coming up with names. I can tell you, sometimes we'll spend 2 hours and have nothing. I'm just like, God, we just 2 hours, we couldn't come up with a single name. And it's like, if you're rolling out beers pretty frequently, I mean, think about how much time is spent on naming these things. But yeah, I agree. I think people are getting a little more creative. I guess they kind of have to. Like, anytime a beer comes out, and we've leaned into this a little bit, but they try to work hop into the name. But we have a peach IPA we call Bunny Hop, but it's kind of in our lane a little bit. And then we came out with a sort of a mildly tropical golden ale, and we called it Island Hopper. So, but the amount of time we spent on the branding, because we have a really good branding company, like that's probably been one of the biggest evolutions of Pedal Haus in the entire 10 years we've been open, is the branding. That's been in existence now for about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And it was expensive, and it was the third or fourth time we've done it. Now, this time around, we didn't change the logo significantly like we did the other two times, but the whole color scheme and look and feel and all completely brand new. And I do believe your branding is super important. I think it's a part of marketing. I don't know that anyone would necessarily argue against that, but that can be tricky too, because you got to come up with your own voice, which we did. That voice, and when I say voice, obviously I mean the visual continuity. It has to be able to exist across 14 different styles of beer and all be cohesive. And it took us 8-9 years to figure that out, but it was partly we just found the right local team that, man, they just freaking nail it. And so especially like our biggest growth in the last year has been off premise, so grocery, boutique grocery, bottle shops, that kind of thing. And when there's no one there to sell your beer, that branding is important. Does it draw them in? Does it look a little, I don't know, too playful or too serious or too confusing? Does it look like a seltzer and not a beer? You know what I mean? So we've really evolved in the branding department. And it's like amazing because you got, like I said, the Voltage IPA, not bicycle or bunny themed. And you've got Bunny Hop IPA, which has a guy on a BMX bike. And then, all the other ones, but you can recognize it as a Pedal Haus brand based on the branding, even if you didn't see the logo. Gotcha. And it took us forever to figure that out or to find the right team. But man, that's a relief when you finally, all right, this is our brand identity and we know it's not going to change. And that just happened just before we started really getting traction in the grocery stores. So it was kind of like perfect timing versus going out with one look and then changing it halfway through.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about brand identity. And, like you guys have probably learned along the way that these are some of the things that are misses. This is the stuff that is a hit for us. And maybe it's just for you, but what have you learned over these developments, and maybe what other breweries you feel get wrong at the beginning and don't understand why building that strong brand identity matters so much?
I mean, we've always had some level of brand identity, but we never planned to do cans. So we didn't have to worry about being on a grocery store shelf, and we had our tap handles. They're kind of simple, but once you start getting into canning, I think you have to have that pretty well pinned down. And I think the consumers appreciate, when I say creative, I just mean well done can branding. And certainly you've seen some trends over the years that people kind of all start to copy. But if you can have your own lane in that world, like we do, and many others do, I think it's important, and I think the consumer appreciates it. But yeah, it wasn't like something we had to worry about too much when we started, because we weren't even gonna, like I said, be in cans or bottles. You have to have some branding, obviously, because you got posters and stuff for events. But yeah, that wasn't something we had to worry about until we really decided to make the commitment to canning, which it all kind of dovetailed around the same time we met these guys. Was around the same time we brought a canning line. And I'm super into branding to the point of being like ridiculous, meaning like I'll follow a football team or a European soccer team, or just based on like, does their branding look buttoned up?
Yeah.
Are their colors cool? And in fact, I've been, since football started, and watching a ton of college football this past weekend, I'm like, man, some of these teams look dated. Florida State, like, time to mix it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, thank God ASU, Arizona State, like they're on it.
Yeah.
Oregon set the tone.
Right.
They're on it. Tennessee lucked out. Their stuff was so bizarre that it now looks cool as hell because it's an alternative color that's bright.
Yep.
And they played Syracuse, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Someone in orange, and it looked dated, right? So point being, I like the Chargers because I just love the color scheme, and I love the old school number on the helmet. I love football teams that do the mat. Like, hate to say it because I'm from the Philadelphia area. I'm definitely an Eagles fan, but having watched Jaden Daniels kick some major ass when he was at ASU and now playing for Washington, and oh, by the way, those are basically Sun Devil colors.
Yeah.
I sort of love watching the Commanders, and I like that their uniforms are great. Fairly simple, but they get the map. Anyways, point being, that's my brain really gravitates towards that. So I was never quite satisfied with our branding at Pedal House. And the other thing about branding that's tough, and I've experienced this in my other businesses because I have other bars and restaurants. Like, does it work everywhere? Does it work on a t-shirt? Does it work on a hat? Does it work on a can? Does it work on a poster? It has to be able to live in all these different arenas. And that's kind of hard to pull off. So I was never quite satisfied with our branding until this year and a half ago, when we finally got the look and feel that I am super into and love. And it works across all the uses, whether it's a t-shirt, a hat, a can, most importantly, or poster. So yeah, it's really nice to finally get that pinned down and have it be something I'm super proud of.
Do you feel that having an outside company come in and help you work with it is a big key to that, because you are putting new eyes on things that you might not like it and you don't know why you don't like it, but you can have someone else come in and be able to be critical with you, to be able to help solve those issues instead of working internally. You've all seen it all the time. You've all, you maybe created it and then trying to reinvigorate yourself by looking at it yourself. I mean, it's so important to be able to bring in some kind of company like that. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
Especially for that, because that is the most creativity intense. I mean, I gave them a lot of direction, but I could have never done what they did. Not in a million years. So yeah, in that case, for sure, 100%. And they, to their credit, and they work in the beer space a lot. They took their time. I mean, it took almost 9 months from the day we signed the agreement to the day they released all these beer can designs.
Yeah.
So they did market research. They met with customers. They went and talked to people, and they talked to people internally, externally. I mean, that took a couple months. And they even did some mock-ups, which is funny because the 3 mock-ups they did for potential can designs, I hated all of them. I'm like, man, here we go again. We're 30 grand into this and it's going to be useless. And so I was skeptical, but one way or another, they figured it out. Because I wanted, we're Pedal Haus, Haus, and we brew and feature and specialize German style beers more than I would say any other brewery in Arizona. So I really wanted something that blended classic and traditional with contemporary, not something that was totally new and unrecognizable. Yeah. And I used a lot of the European football teams and schemes as inspiration, for our can design and the branding. And, the logos for European football teams. I mean, that's like a really big thing for them. And there's a lot of historical reasons why it's this or that or the other thing.
Right.
So that sort of iconography that each can had, almost like if you look at our can portfolio, it looks like, the UEFA, like a European Champions League lineup of teams. Like every can or every style of beer has its own, icon, its own color scheme, but they all tie together. At any rate, they nailed it. And when they rolled it out, everyone had seen it but me. And they took us to this printing company and they printed all these different can things up and put them on the wall. And I remember walking in, or before we walked in, I'm like, I'm like a play your cards face up kind of guy. In other words, I don't bullshit. I just tell you good, bad, or indifferent, like how I feel. I don't try to play any games or whatever, but I was like, man, I don't want to be rude, but if I don't like this, like they're going to know immediately. You know what I mean? Kind of like, I'm not a super emotional guy, but like, what you see is what you get kind of thing. And I walked in there and I was just like, damn, this is sweet. Like these guys nailed it. I was practically dancing. I was so stoked. So yeah, super, super, super important, especially for me, a guy that really like the visuals are super important.
Yeah. And again, it's that, it's basically a Christmas present unveiling for you and having to, the nervousness of walking in going, what has my money done? And to, you don't want to be disappointed. You don't want, because you need to be this is what you're going forward with. So that has to be the biggest part of it, is to understand that it takes time and it takes effort to get to that point.
Well, I think it's finding the right partner. Like, it wasn't even, I was worried about wasting my money, although, 30 grand is a lot of money, but it's sort of like, this is our third marriage. Like, we had one branding company. I think it was maybe our fourth, to be honest with you. I think they're the fourth branding company that had touched our brand. And it's like, man, are we ever gonna get it right? Are we ever gonna find the one that we can grow old with or whatever? So that was the relief. Was like, oh shit, we finally got it. This is it. This is what I've been trying to, like, not been great at expressing, but what I was looking for the whole time. Yeah. So, and they just keep nailing it. Like we just rolled out a few other beers, and including the Voltage. And gosh, they just keep sticking the landing on creating new branding, or like they not only create this big overarching brand, right? Now they got to create a personality for every freaking style that fits within that. And these guys just kill it, and it's like not cheap. We're spending, I don't know, gosh, I forget what the retainer is. Maybe it's almost $2,000 a month ongoing. So 20 grand a year, because we're pumping out new beers, new posters, new menus. And now we just like what they do so much. We have them doing all of our graphic design.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
When it comes to breweries, and you guys aren't by any means like huge. Like, I mean, you're bigger than the average, with the average brewery being somewhere in the hundreds of barrels per year. You guys are only in the what, 5 or 6 ish per year, right? When it comes to production.
1,000? No, no, we're probably 3 at the most.
3. Okay. And that kind of even proves my point more. Like, it's not like you guys are widespread, have this, I think a lot of times if someone's listening to something like this, like, well, it's not for us. Like, we're too small for that. And everyone always wants to, like, no, there's bigger guys than us. Well, you're not much bigger. You guys do, you're in a metro area, obviously, but it is important to be able to have the mindset and understand that the investment is needed to be able to A, compete, B, just continue to move forward. It might not even be about like actual growth, but sometimes it's just to make sure that it's kind of like Pepsi and Coke. They still advertise every year in the Super Bowl. Everyone knows who they are, but you have to constantly, no matter how much you think you are known, you still have to have that. We need that visual identity. We need that opportunity to be able to put people's eyes on us. I think it's important. Is there something, if one brewery is listening to this right now, like it's a key, and I think we've kind of talked about this, it's important to have that key visual aspect of who you guys are.
Yeah, I think it really depends what your goals are. And I know if there's a real small brewery, sort of call it a mom and pop, 30 grand is just not realistic. I totally get that. It's probably not. And maybe you're not ready to even need that. Like, we didn't need it until we were ready to go to market, so to speak.
Yeah.
Even though we spent a decent amount on the marketing when we first opened, or the branding rather, it just didn't quite fit the direction I thought we were going to eventually go in. And you learn about your brand along the way, right? So I don't know that in 2016 I would have felt the same way about the branding as I do in 2020. Well, probably 2024 when we started it. But at any rate, I think it depends on your goals. Depends, like, do you want to grow, or is this more or less a hobby business where you got your tap room and your community and you like tinkering with it, but the thought of growing is not really something you're interested in, which is totally fine? Or are you trying to build a brand that's going to be on grocery store shelves and blah, blah, blah? So, and sometimes it's just a little bit the case with us, like, that can change over time too. Maybe originally you didn't want to do that. Maybe originally that's all you wanted to do. Then you pump the brakes and slow down. So I think it depends really on what your goals are with your brewery, your business, and the timing, but I do think the overarching point is that having a cohesive brand message, which is reflected in what your cans look like, what you name your beers, how you message it, what your stores look like, matters. Like, I've traveled quite a bit, so I go to breweries. I just like to see what other people are doing. And you can see even small ones, sometimes they've really thought out their color scheme and their logo and their decor. And then there's other ones, they just look like they hung up a sign and that's about it, right? And I'm not here to say one's better than the other, but if you want to get attention, people want to see that you put some effort into your business, and they want to be part of it's like, you can look at it like a team. Like if you're whatever, Manchester City or whatever, name a PSG, whatever, like people are buying into not just the fact that you're local, they're buying into the culture, the community, the tribe, and that all includes all the stuff, the chants, the uniforms, the history, how you celebrate goals, whatever. Same with American football, but I think people sometimes lose sight of the fact that your business can be tribal as well. And people use the word community more than tribe, but same kind of thing. It's like your fan base, and fan base, they want to rock your colors. And if you don't have any, it's going to be harder to do that.
I want to take a sidebar just because we have talked European football here a little bit. Like, who impresses you, and how, do you have a team? Did you pick a team because of, how you felt, like how did you get into looking at what European soccer does to even help kind of train your brain in that kind of aspect?
Yeah. And I kind of fade in and out of it. 2 years ago, I probably watched every single match. This year, it's just been busy and it's fallen off a little bit. But my stepdad is from London. Him and I both played soccer growing up. I've been to Europe many times. I was actually born in Europe, although I didn't really return as an adult till I was in my 20s. But I mean, I saw the last game Arsenal played in their old stadium. Cool. Arsenal was his team. So I kind of followed them. I would say Manchester City was the first team that I kind of watched every single game, every match. And there's two reasons for that. One is I was in Munich for Oktoberfest in like 2014-ish. And I was at an Irish bar by myself, and I'm sitting at a table on the patio, and just all of a sudden I'm noticing it's all these Man City fans. Well, they're in town to play a UEFA game against Bayern Munich, and just happened to be going to this bar that I was in. Well, it got to the point where there was nowhere to sit, and it's like me by myself at a table that held 6 people. And so these dudes just said, "Hey man, can we join you?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." Well, freaking clinking beers for 2 hours. We're all best friends. And one of their buddies got so blocked out drunk, he couldn't go to the game. So they gave me his ticket, which was probably a $200 ticket or something. I don't even know.
Wow.
And so we all marched off to see Man City. And you can get caught up in that real quick, because the chants, the passion, I mean, almost to the point of aggressiveness. Anyways, so that was my first, like when I went with my dad or stepdad, like, and family, like, I got a taste of it. But when I went with the Man City dudes, like, it was a whole different experience.
That's awesome.
And then there was the player, and it's just ridiculous. I'm spacing his name right now just because I'm thinking about beer. But he used to play for Borussia Dortmund. He's their forward. Holland. Do you know that guy at all?
No.
Yeah, he's Norwegian, but he played for the German team Borussia Dortmund, and he's a phenom. And so I was kind of just watching him when he played there. This guy was just insane. And then because of that, Man City bought him. So then he became the forward at Man City. So I already had a little Man City taste. And then this favorite player, Erling Haaland, went to Man City. And then within a year or two, they won every single competition you could win. Premier League, UEFA League, and the other one. But anyways, yeah, so I've always kind of enjoyed that. And I always thought that they did a nice job with their kind of the uniforms and their branding.
Oh, now I remember him, why I knew that name, which is just completely, I'm a big Clash of Clans fan, and they're from, I think, Norway or Sweden, the makers of the game. And they made him a character in the game. And that's, I'm like, when you said his name, I was like, no, wait. But then you started describing him. I'm like, yep, I totally remember who this guy. I just looked it up. He was a character on a Clash of Clans, like an unlock skin or something like that. So yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Yeah, very good player. I actually, I came from a completely weird way. I played like FA 07, let's say, on PlayStation 2 or whatever. Never knew the rules of soccer. It just was like, I think it was free on whoever gave me the system, like it came with it. And so I was like, once you get good at a game, you want to like make it hard for yourself. So you pick like the worst team that you can pick. And at the time, the worst team in like 2007 in the Premier League was Wigan Athletic. So I played them, learned all the players, knew who all those guys were, and pretty much just kind of fell into this role of being a Wigan Athletic fan. And they won the FA Cup in 2013. They did a world tour and came to the United States and played 3 matches, and it happened to be in Ohio where I live. So I got to go. I have an autographed kit from that whole team. Roger Espinoza, who played at Ohio State, went on to play for the Kansas City Wiz Monarchs, whichever one they were at the time, and then ended up playing over there. So now I'm actually the head of the Facebook group for US based Wigan Athletic supporters. And I've gotten to meet like a bunch of former players, and, there's only a small amount. Obviously Wigan's not exactly going to be the one of the biggest fan supporter bases in the US, but the fact that, I've made friends 10, 12 years ago now, we still stay in touch. And whenever there's matches, we're connecting, through Facebook, and they're in League One right now. So, Wrexham, beat up on them pretty good last year on their way to the championship. But it always, when you brought up soccer, I was like, yep, that's cool. I agree. Like, just the, like Wigan's logo is like a tree, and there's like a whole history there, why it's that. It's the same important pieces. And again, these are hundreds of year old clubs now, the same type of thing. Identity matters. And it builds a base. So I think that's a good.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, and it definitely builds that base and a fan that can go on forever, and build your brand outside of what you're doing yourself at that moment.
I also thought, like, European football, soccer, like they were not afraid to use non-traditional color schemes or colors. And you look at like the Portland Timbers, it's like sort of forest green, but with gold, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
man, and they just nailed it. And when you walk around Portland, you just see their branding everywhere, and it just, I don't know, draws you in. I think same as with whether it's beer cans or just restaurant branding in general.
Right.
Like, it draws you. You want to wear the brand.
I wanted to ask you something that kind of goes into this as well, though, but like, and you travel, you've seen things. Is there things in breweries that, when it comes to marketing, let's knock it off in this industry? What is there something that you're just like, I don't like it, I've seen it too many times, or is there something that we're not doing that you see in other industries that are kind of an important thing that could help build breweries going forward?
Well, I think the biggest one is what we talked about, like
cohesion,
the beer names, and just not getting lazy there. And also, and we've had this debate. I'm probably wrong, but I know our previous branding guy was like, we got to name every beer. And some of my brewer guys like, the reason this company's beating us is they got great names and all this stuff. I have always defended the position that don't let the beer shine. And then, like, if I go to some brewery in Portland or wherever, I don't give a shit what the name is. Like, is it good or not? Do I understand what it is? Like, what style it is? Like but that's just me, I think. So I don't know. I'm probably in the minority on that. I mean, I think more importantly, make sure your beer is good. Like, I hate to say it, but I've been to some breweries where their beer is undrinkable. And I'm like, how are you around beer all day, brewing beer all day, probably drinking beer all day, and you don't recognize that this beer is like really, really, really bad? That's a head scratcher to me. Like, I understand some of the consumers, they don't understand the difference, but if you're in the industry and maybe they just, I don't know how to make the beer, they don't have the right equipment, that's possible. Like, so I'm talking some really small breweries in general. Mm-hmm. But I think the beer quality's gotta be your absolute focus. And we just dumped 30 kegs down the drain recently. Because the beer was the hops weren't showing like they were when at first, like it didn't move as fast, or we brewed too much, probably more or less realistic. Sure. And it was actually a beer that we're phasing out. So we kind of slowed our roll and pushing it out in the market. And then next thing you know, we're stuck with 30 kegs, and we're just like, yeah, it's drinkable. Most people won't know the difference, but it's not up to our standard. Chuck it, That's a little painful because I just hate wasting, but it's important, I mean, you're really only as good as your product. And some people kind of get away with faking it, but I think definitely make sure your beer is solid, and don't be afraid to dump it if it's not. Right. So I think those things. And then I think, because I also think, and everyone can kind of choose the way they want to do this, but anything that's customer facing, where your customer interacts with your brand in a way that you can control, which is anytime they come to your place to drink your beer versus a grocery store, is like, take it seriously as far as what kind of environment you're providing them to drink your beer. It's not just you're not a bottle shop where they're picking it up and taking it home and they get to put on whatever music they want when they get home. Light a candle, don't light a candle, light a bonfire, don't light a bonfire, sit in a lazy boy. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's really important to create an environment in which they want to hang out. Mm-hmm. And often that's what I see missed when I travel. The music's barely audible, lights are too bright, furniture is uncomfortable, bartender. Yeah, there's some great ones I run into, but a lot of times they just don't seem they're maybe beer nerds, but they're not like human enthusiasts, right? They're not engaging. Yeah. Where they're too cool for school. I run into that sometimes. So I think that's pretty important. I've seen some less than stellar tap room operations in my traveling days, and I've seen some killer ones, and I prefer to, like, there's a bar in Portland. It's not a brewery, but it's called Prost. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's on Mississippi Street for anyone that's going to Portland anytime soon. And I'm like their biggest fanboy. Like, the decor is a perfect balance between what sort of looks like a German vibe, maybe something sort of in the Alps or something. They only do German beers. They obviously know their beer, and they serve every beer in the proper glass from that brewery. They know how to pour it. The food is great. The music's good. The staff is great. Like, I was just in Portland for 5 days. I went to that bar 4 of the 5 days just because like they just crush it. And then there's some other breweries in Portland where, they just don't seem to really get that the experience for the customer is more than just the beer, the name, the reputation. Mm-hmm. So I think that's valuable to focus on that, like what kind of environment and vibe you're setting for people to consume your beer in.
Well, I think, yeah, a lot of good points made. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about those, but I always like to end the podcast with some more fun stuff. We've talked soccer already, but let's get to know you a little bit. And the first one, I don't know if this is more of a Midwest thing, so I have to. And you are from the East Coast originally, but do you know what Malort is?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and I think with the brewing industry, most people are. I'm literally, you're the first one in the podcast that I'm going to be asking about this, but I think this is going to become a staple at the end. Do you have a Malort story of your own, or what do you? What is your thoughts on Malort?
Couple things. Now I own a bar that sells the most Malort in Arizona.
So I started with a good one.
Yeah. And Malort, God, they're so good, because I think what made them a cult classic is this promotional video they put out. I'm sure you've seen it, where it's like the Jepson family grandson telling about the family tradition, and they're like, all right, but you got to do the shot at the end. He's like, okay. So he, take 7, he's vomiting on himself. And they leaned into what you could argue is their fault, which is it's pretty gnarly. They also leaned, this is all ties into our conversation today, which is about
absolutely
branding, messaging, who are you? And they'd come up with sayings like, Malort, today's the day I fight my dad, that kind of stuff. So cult classic beverage that is not the most smoothest thing in the world. So, I think Malort, and it's a little bit like the Fernet Branca story, but you get someone, I call it the virgin shot, right? Like someone that doesn't know better. You're like, hey buddy, can I get you a Malort? And they're like, what's that? Like, oh, you're going to love it. Like, oh, what the hell was that? So I've done that a ton with my buddy. I'm usually good for one, but like I did so many at that bar just with buying them for people, right? Just to mess with them. And of course I'll do one with them, whatever, that I got a taste for. Like, it doesn't really bother me anymore. So it got to the point where people would try to get me back by buying me a Malort. But, after you've had 12 or 16 of them, it's like not a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I can't think of any other specific stories, but Malort kind of like weaves in and out of my world because of this particular bar. And then people that I've bought Malort shots for, I'll see them years later, like, remember you brought me that damn Malort?
Yeah, it like over the years, I started curling probably about 10 years ago, but it's a huge staple, at least in the Midwest. If you screw up a shot, you hog the rock, you don't get it down there all the way, it's immediate. You have to stop the game and go take a shot. Like it's the punishment. So we always have a bottle of Malort on hand at the curling club. And it was my wife's birthday this past weekend. And so one of the guys from my curling team came with a bottle of Malort. Well, of course, you have a lot of mid 40-year-old women who have never had it. And let me just tell you, the revelry that we enjoyed of every time someone would show up with a birthday present and be like, congratulations, here's well, here, do that.
Right.
Don't smell it. Just drink it. And we needed more video. That was what we needed.
Yeah.
Everyone was taking pictures of it. No one took any video. But yeah.
But isn't it genius? They've built their reputation on doing our shot as a punishment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the ballsiest thing. They could have tried to pretend that, the secret in, what is it, Finnish or Danish or something like that? Scandinavian recipe.
Scandinavian, yeah.
Good for your body and blah, blah, blah. No, they're like, hey, this is shit. You don't do your shot right in curling. Make them drink our stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You just leaned into that. I think it's brilliant.
So another one be what song is playing during a brewery montage of Pedal House if it was in a documentary?
It's definitely going to be rock for sure. trying to think, because our playlists have evolved. I'm sort of thinking back in the day I could probably look it up pretty easily. But when I say rock, I don't necessarily mean classic rock.
Mm-hmm.
But probably rock starting in the 90s and moving forward to probably, say from like, 92 to 2010.
Gotcha.
Virtually pick a band. But I do, or used to do, all of our playlists. I do them for all my businesses, but sometimes I'll turn it over to this company we use. It curates the list so that it's not the same 80 songs playing over and over.
Mm-hmm.
But the key to a good playlist, and it doesn't even matter what style of restaurant or bar or brewery it is you can't have all 90s rock. It'll get old quick, right?
Yeah.
So you got to mix in other genres that still work well with whatever your main genre is. So you come into Pedal House, you'll hear rock, 90s, hip hop, you'll hear reggae, you'll hear funk. So I mix all that stuff in. I might say, all right, it's going to be 40% or 50% rock, maybe from a 2-decade era, but then the rest has to mix it up. Otherwise people get bored.
Yeah.
So I think if I had to pick one, it'd probably be the rock I just described, but I would never play that constantly throughout the night because it would get old. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's wrap it up with this one. And we kind of railed against it a little bit ago. But what is the weirdest beer name that you haven't used that you secretly actually did want to use and you guys never got around to using it?
Yeah, I'm good at notes because I can't remember much. So on my phone, you got the notes.
Right.
So damn near probably at least 10 years, if not 11. Anytime I come up with the name, I'll chuck it on there. And then, you go back and read it every time you come out with a beer and you're like, what in the heck was I thinking? That's the dumbest name I've ever heard. Like Can of Bliss, like a real cannabis hop aroma, but Can of Bliss. That was pretty gnarly. I don't even think we really particularly came close to using that, but I think, Can of Bliss. That's I could probably pull up my notes right now and rip off a couple other doozies.
It's always interesting when, because I think everyone I've ever talked to has that sheet somewhere or written down of, I'm going to name this. And then you either have to, I have a beer in mind for it or a beer that you don't have a name for. And you're like, we're just going to slap this on top of it. And we kind of talked about that, but I know I have heard philosophies on both of those.
Yodelay, Belgian Blonde. Fu Man Brew, Shakedown Wheat, obviously a Grateful Dead reference.
Yeah,
it is kind of funny. I'm glad I haven't deleted these because they're good for a laugh for sure. Easy Rider, Light Lager.
I bet you could take a bunch of those, plug them into Untapped, and you'd probably find them somewhere.
No
like
doubt.
You said, it happens. Like no matter what you think you have, you end up looking at it later, plug it into something like Untapped or Beer Advocate, and it's probably been done at some tap room somewhere in the world.
I even got Tropicana-Bus.
You had the whole line extension ready to go.
Yeah. What was hard to name was our Mexican lager. Because that's been our style has proliferated in the last 5-10 years. But I had I'll tell you what our name is in a minute, what we ended up going with. But I have one on here that's Mustachio. It was going to be like a big mustache thing, and Mucho Macho Mexican lager. But we ended up going with Beach Cruiser because most of these Mexican style beers that have come out in the last 5 years, like, they're Santeria, they're kind of a Mexican word or phrase or name. And I'm like, we're just going to kind of blend in with all the others if we do that. So we just said, screw it. This is called Beach Cruiser. That sounds like a fun Southern California activity that would go great with a Mexican amber lager. And then the branding just worked out perfectly. It's got like a beach cruiser, yellow beach cruiser on a blue can.
Yep.
So I'm actually pretty happy with that name. And even though it's not like Spanish or Mexican specifically.
It triggered me that I actually had that. I think you guys sent that to me actually back in 2017 before it had that name.
Oh, is that right?
It just comes up as Mexican Amber Lager on Untapped, and it has the blue logo, the blue and yellow logo. But I'll even read what I wrote. This is August 29th of 2017 on Untapped. I wrote, "I'm immensely impressed by the quality of these beers."
That's cool.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sometimes Untapped does have nice things to say.
Yeah, most times people just want to light you up.
Well, awesome. And it's great. Been talking to you, Julian, and I appreciate, sharing a little bit about yourself, talking some soccer, and more importantly, talking about marketing and branding and the importance of it for a craft brewery. I appreciate your time.
Anytime, pal. Nice talking to you.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.